The first time I saw him, he wasn't smiling. Everyone thinks Boat was born with that gentle smile, the one that melts into his eyes like sunlight on water, but that day, he looked distant. Like someone who already knew what it meant to say goodbye. We were auditioning for My Stubborn. The room smelled like coffee and nervous dreams. I had just dropped my script, and he bent down to pick it up before I did. That small, quiet gesture, that was Boat. Always noticing the little things that others don't. When our eyes met, I forgot my lines. He laughed softly, not mocking, just amused. That laugh stayed with me longer than the role itself. They paired us for a screen test, and I remember how our lines blurred with reality. I wasn't acting, not really. When he looked at me and said, "Don't run away again," I felt something inside me whisper back, "I won't." I didn't know then that sometimes, promises made on set never survive the lights. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more touching K-drama stories and emotional news-style narratives. People see the show, not the silence after. When the director yelled, "Cut," everyone cheered, but Oat just looked at me. That kind of gaze that strips everything away. He had this reckless warmth. He'd walk into a room and fill it with noise, laughter, stories that had no endings. And I, quiet by nature, found myself waiting for those moments. I used to think we were just co-stars, two names on the same poster. But somewhere between takes, he became the calm I didn't know I needed. There's a moment fans never saw. One night, it was raining after a late shoot. We were the last ones there. He handed me his jacket, joking that I looked too fragile to survive Thai weather. I laughed, but when he turned away, I whispered, "Don't be too kind to me." He didn't hear. Or maybe he did, and pretended not to. Everyone talks about chemistry. They don't understand that sometimes it's not chemistry, it's history waiting to happen. During filming, there were times when I'd forget where the camera was. When he touched my hand, it didn't feel like acting. It felt like remembering something from another life. We became close, closer than we should have been. Not in loud ways, but in quiet ones, the late-night texts, the unspoken worries, the shared silences. But the world outside our little story was louder. Managers, scripts, contracts, everything reminding us that we were here to perform, not to feel. One night, he said, "People love what we show them, not what we hide." I didn't answer. Because what we were hiding was already too real. Success changes everything. After the show aired, people started calling us Boat. A name made of two lives stitched together for screens and hashtags. I wanted to be happy, for both of us. But the more people loved us, the more I felt the real me fading. He was always brave. Always smiling, teasing me for being too serious. But I saw it too, the exhaustion behind his grin, the loneliness that came with fame. There was one interview where the host asked, "What makes your bond special?" Oat answered first, "We understand each other without words." I smiled, but inside I thought, sometimes words are the only way to survive. I should have told him what I felt. That our friendship meant more than applause, that he had become my quiet home in the noise. But instead, I just nodded and said, "Yeah, we're like brothers." The lie hurt more than the truth ever could. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more touching K-drama stories and emotional news-style narratives. Fame is a tide. It pulls you in, even when you're trying to hold on. After My Stubborn, we both took on new projects. Different paths, different co-stars, different lives. Fans noticed the distance, but they called it schedule conflicts. We still texted, but messages became shorter. "You good?" "Yeah, just tired." The kind of conversations you have when you're both pretending you're fine. The last time we saw each other before everything changed, he hugged me a little too long. It was just a casual event, lights, cameras, fans screaming. But when he pulled back, his eyes looked tired, like he was saying goodbye to something neither of us could name. That night, I went home and couldn't sleep. Because sometimes you lose people without a fight, not because you stop caring, but because you care in silence. There's a strange peace in distance. I thought space would help me forget, it didn't. I'd see his face on billboards, interviews, smiling like he always did. People asked me about him, and I learned to smile too. But behind the public calm, I carried every unfinished sentence between us. Every almost confession, every text I never sent. Once, during a radio interview, they played one of his songs. The lyrics went, "Even if we're miles apart, the sky above us is the same." I laughed on air, told the host it was a nice melody. But when I got home, I replayed it. Over and over. Until dawn. 2 years later, fate did what neither of us dared, it brought us back. A new project. Same producer. Same studio. When I saw his name on the call sheet, I froze. I thought I was ready, I wasn't. When he walked in, everything was too familiar. The way he carried his calm like armor. The way his eyes met mine, steady but soft. We didn't say much that day. Just a quiet nod, like the world had come full circle. But during rehearsals, something shifted again. Old laughter. Old comfort. But also, new restraint. We both knew what we couldn't say. That night, we sat outside under the studio lights, pretending the world wasn't watching. He said, "We've grown, haven't we?" I smiled. Maybe growing just means learning how to miss people quietly. He didn't reply. He just looked up, at the same stars that had watched us years ago, and smiled. The project wrapped. The cameras stopped. Again. I waited for him to say something, anything. But maybe some stories don't need words to end. He handed me a photo, an old behind-the-scenes shot from my stubborn. On the back, he'd written, "For the story that changed my life, and the person who reminded me I have one." I smiled, but my heart ached. I wanted to say, "Stay." But instead, I said, "See you around." He laughed softly, the same laugh from the audition years ago. "Yeah," he said. "See you around." And he walked away. Sometimes I write him letters. Not to send, just to remember. Dear Boat. Do you ever miss that night we got drenched in the rain? I still keep the jacket. It smells like time we never got back. I don't know if he ever thinks of me when he sees the ocean, or when someone says my name. But I think of him when I see light falling on quiet places, because that's what he was. Light, even when it hurt to shine. People always ask what chemistry means. I've stopped trying to explain. Because it's not about sparks. It's about silence. The kind that doesn't feel empty, the kind that feels like understanding. He taught me that love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the things you never say, the choices you make to protect what can't survive the spotlight. I know he smiles. A story of love that never had to be declared, only remembered. Of two souls who met between lights and silence. And learned that sometimes, the most beautiful connections are the ones that never get their ending. Only echoes that stay. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more touching K-drama stories and emotional news-style narratives. I still see him sometimes, on screens, in songs, in the laughter of fans. And every time, I whisper quietly, "Thank you for finding me in that crowded room." They say every story has an ending. I don't believe that anymore. Maybe we weren't meant to last, but we were meant to matter. And maybe that's enough. Whenever I walk past a film set, I still hear his voice in my head. Calm, steady, real. Sometimes I look up at the sky and say, "We did well, didn't we?"